So once again, thank you so much for joining me today, Juliet. And I'm going to start at the beginning. So you've been in the music industry about 15 years. So tell us like how you got into the music industry initially.
Well, I was away and I had a friend who told me that there was a job in an independent record label, so which was also a music publisher. So I started off my career in that. And that was a great learning space because if you're in something small, you tend to get all angles of it. So I learned about publishing and being in a label and an idea of managing artists as well. And then I went back to the UK and sort of continued on with the publishing myself and just represent a number of artists. And then when I came back, I sort of pushed that on further and started to see that there was sort of a gap between, that there was nobody really offering music supervision, and that film companies and TV companies didn't understand and probably needed help and assistance around the music side of things, both in terms of music supervision, the music publishing, and in accessing composers. So I suppose that's the area I've kind of moved into over the last number of years. But it all began in an independent label and in a very different time, actually. I mean, when I was working in the label, we were releasing CDs and people could make money releasing CDs. So I've seen how that has hugely changed.
Yeah. And can you explain in simple terms what being a music supervisor entails?
Sure. So my job is basically overseeing all the aspects of the commercial music that's in a production. So I suppose there's two main facets.
No, it's frozen. Okay, it's frozen.
Usually negotiating fees as well. So that's one side of it. Sometimes I will also organise orchestral performances, and that'll be finding studios, booking the orchestras, and liaising with the production company. And then on the other side, which is the more creative part of the job that I think people think is the only part of music supervision, is helping the team source music for particular scenes in a production.
Yeah.
And then that'll often be like, there might be something that there might be a piece of music that's in a scene that's working quite well, but we need to change we need something where the lyrics are a bit different, or we might need a female vocal, or we can't afford the piece of music that's in there. And so it might be finding something that everybody's happy with that's cheaper, etc. So that's the kind of, I suppose that's an overview of what a music supervisor does.
Okay, yeah, very interesting. And also as well, you're currently on the board of IMRO, which is the Irish Music Rights Organization, under music publishers. And I know a lot of artists struggle to kind of grasp a clear understanding of the music publishing. So what's the easiest way to explain to artists listening about, music publishing, or how they could get their music into a publisher?
Yeah, I mean, music publishing is one of the more difficult things for people to understand, I think. I suppose when you write a piece of music, you create rights, and those rights, or the management of those rights, can be a role of a publisher, if that makes sense. So on a practical sense, say you've written a piece of music, and I decide I'll help you out with the publishing, I'll register that piece of music. And I'll make sure that that's registered with the local PRO or the Performing Rights Organization, IMRO, for example, and I'll make sure that registration is around the world. I might have sub-publishers who help with that registration in different territories. And then I'll if I'm a good publisher, I'll try and exploit that piece of music. And people get a little bit nervous about that word exploit, but all that means is I'll try and maximize the revenue that piece of music can generate, be that with syncs, or be that just generally making sure that that if your song is played in New Zealand, that on the radio, that money is going to come to you.
Yeah, so by exploiting, you're going to try and promote it as much as possible, like
exactly
to buyers. Yeah,
exactly. So it's almost in the back end admin, and it's all then in the kind of upfront pushing pushing that piece of music, be it if you're trying to get someone to cover it, trying to maximize the revenue of the original copyright that this writer has created.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's kind of like, fairly well and simply explained. But I mean, of course, you can kind of go down the rabbit hole. Then there's so many other,
Yeah.
tales to it and everything else. But I think, yeah, that's a fairly succinct description. So yeah, that's pretty good. And the TV series Normal People has had huge international success as well, of which you provided the soundtrack, which is an amazing achievement, given the current times actually that we're going through. So I'm just kind of wondering as well, like, how has COVID affected your business in sync publishing and supervision?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, kind of like, there was obviously, when it sort of first happened, sort of March, I was still majorly finishing off Normal People. We still hadn't finished off all the tracks. It was still licensing. Then there was lots of paperwork, and I was working on another production, and then there was other things coming through. And then now I'm starting to see that kind of tail off because nothing is being made. There's some advertising work coming through, and then obviously I might provide a composer for an ad, or I might, suggest a song for an ad. So that side of it's not so bad, but I'm not seeing productions starting up. I know there are some that had sort of stopped halfway through and they're continuing on, but a lot of new productions are waiting. And I believe it's around insurance. There were a lot of claims because a lot of productions just had to halt halfway through when the restrictions came in, and a lot of insurers are now reluctant to insure productions, and so without insurance it's really difficult to get things going again. So it's there. And I mean, I was on Normal People with I co-supervised it with Maggie Phillips, and she's LA based, and that's all ground to a halt there as well. So
okay, because I actually thought it was picking up again in LA, particularly now at the moment, but obviously not. And
well, it might be new production. It might be newer productions. I certainly know. I know of things that are coming on again, bigger productions, maybe with Green Scene. Maybe there are productions. I don't fully understand the ones that are starting again and those that aren't, but I have heard, that things are slow to start back up. Yeah, there is certainly stuff starting, whether that's the way that the filming can be done, or is already halfway through and so can be finished. But yeah, certainly it's definitely causing a pause.
Yeah, fair enough. So can you bring us through the process of how you would compile or compose music for a soundtrack?
Okay, well, I'll definitely do all the compiling of the commercial music, but not obviously there's a composer involved too, in the case of Normal People, Stephen Rennicks. So I will, when I get the script and I look at the script and I make sure that there's nothing that needs to be cleared prior to filming, I'll then just make a really general playlist based on the script. And I mean, in Normal People, I'd read the book, and I'd actually made a playlist just after I read the book, just for my own kind of, I don't know, I suppose I was just kind of driven to do it because I love the book so much. So I'll make a general playlist, which just has quite far-reaching kind of range of tracks, but just things when I listen to them, I think of the production. And then I might have to source specific tracks for the shoot, like, maybe there's a nightclub scene and they're dancing, so I'll find a track for that. There's about 4 or 5 with Normal People that I had to find. And then in post-production, I'll meet with the team. I'll usually share the playlist, or they've probably got in Normal People, they had a playlist going as well, so I sort of added my one to their one. And then we'll start to get down to the scene. So the editor and the director will put in tracks. They may have, I don't know, 3/4 of some suggested tracks in there. Some of them will be temp, in that they know they don't want to use them, but they're thinking of a track in that sort of tone. And then my role will be to kind of suggest alternatives for specific scenes.
Okay, interesting. And how do you go about like choosing the artists for?
Yeah, it's so I know people go, where do you begin, like on smaller budget productions, I'll pick artists that I know, perhaps artists that I've worked with that I know aren't signed, that are maybe more emerging, or perhaps aren't signed to a major, that I know will be in my price point. And I don't limit myself to, like, I'll just listen and say, okay, I think that'll work for that scene. And I'll do something called an open listen, where I'll just go, okay, yeah, I might pick 6 tracks, and I'll look at it to picture. And then that gets narrowed down. But on the smaller budget productions, I'll be really careful about suggesting tracks that I know I can afford.
Yeah,
To
very
the director. Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Because often they'll come and they'll go, we love this track, it's perfect in it. And I'll go, yeah, but I'll know straight away. I'll go, okay, that's signed to Sony. We're not going to be able to afford that. Yeah. And so it'll be then my job. I mean, almost when it's smaller budget production, you're working more because you're going, no, we're going to have to go and we'll have to swap that out. But I pick music based on, I like take music from Spotify playlists. I'll look at blogs and music people have suggested. I have music coming into me from publishers and labels, and I'll listen to all of that.
Okay. Yeah, because that was actually my next question, is like, how difficult is it for artists to kind of come to your attention? So, and then is it, do you scout, or is it word of mouth? But
yeah, word of mouth, blogs, definitely. Like people do send me blind, like cold emails. I do. I'm not, it's so, you're so busy. It's hard to get back to everybody. Sometimes if it comes from if it comes from a source that I know, like a sync agent, or it comes from a publisher, then it's easier for me. And also I can go to a publisher and go, I'm looking for a track for the scene. The reference track is X. And so the publisher can suggest to me, and so it is it's more time efficient for me to have my sources and to use it that way. But then I just use independent Irish artists as well that I might know are playing, that are on the scene, that I like, that I've contacted. And if I can clear them quickly, then. So I suppose in order to kind of summarize that, I think if you are active on the scene and you're gigging and, you're getting attention, then I'll know about you.
Okay.
And I will pitch you. Yeah, I'll listen to you then, and I'll pitch you if I like it.
Okay, and I suppose actually just on that, the fact that, like, I suppose there aren't kind of very many, there's no live gigs kind of happening per se at the minute. How else do you kind of discover them? Is it kind of mainly through Spotify, or are there other?
Yeah, through Spotify. Like I'll look at A Breath of Fresh Air. I'll follow blogs. I look at Niall Nine's blog. I'll look at social media even and just see, I don't know who one artist that I know, who they're recommending or who they're starting to work with,
Okay.
So it's that sort of kind of curate. I suppose there's somebody or something curating them usually,
Sure. Fair enough. I was going to ask as well, like, do you artists do you ever actually get like phone calls and emails from artists kind of inquiring like how they can get on, say an ad, for example?
All the time. Yeah. I do try and listen to them. I don't always get back to people, but that doesn't mean that I haven't listened, And I'm now starting to ask people to just upload to my own disco page, because people send me music and, it's easier if I have it all in one place.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good that the artists are actually kind of taking like the initiative or the incentive themselves to kind of approach you, because it's not necessarily something that a lot of artists would be aware about, would be, publishing and sync deals and things like that and placement. So it's good that they are reaching out. So
yeah,
it's good.
I know, no, it is. And they're really, like, people are really kind of, they're really knowledgeable as well. They'll often say to me in the approach, in the email, like, I own both my master and my publishing, and that's really useful information to know. But sometimes for me, it's about the timing, though. It's like, that's great to have that, but it's like, you tend to kind of go, I'm in this moment where I need this track for this scene,
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So it's harder to kind of, when it comes into me, if it came to me when I was particularly looking for that sort of singer-songwriter, maybe, female vocal, acoustic vibe, if it arrived at that time, I'd be like, great, but it's harder to kind of get that when you're in a rush. And then sort of when you need it in 6 months' time to pull back to that,
Yeah.
But I try.
I suppose they're the best things to kind of keep, getting in touch with you on every like couple of months or something like that. Would you recommend?
I do say that to people. I say, keep in touch with me every couple of months. Here's my disco inbox address, and just upload to that. Then it's there. Then when I'm going to search and tag it really well. So when I'm searching, there's loads of keywords that will come up for me.
That's a really good tip actually for artists, like to head onto your disco page and just put it up there and tag it really well, so then it's there. I keep in touch every couple of months as well. That's really good. I was going
exactly.
to ask you as well, actually, on platforms like CD Baby and TuneCore, so when
Mhm.
artists like upload their music to that, they obviously try and get in the royalties and that too. So how does that work then with independent publishers and making sure that each artist kind of gets, what they're owed, or are they kind of two separate entities? Like if you're working with an independent publisher, that would be, you wouldn't be uploading your stuff to TuneCore, or does it kind of work?
I think, and I don't know TuneCore all that well, but I believe you can choose the publishing part for TuneCore. Am I right? Or you can just upload for the label element.
I'm not too sure actually myself, like, but I think that yeah,
Yeah.
most artists kind of like with CD Baby, you can kind of upload and it kind of does sort of everything really you can do if you have
Yeah.
if
Well,
you
it
want to
is
do
a conflict.
it.
I can't administer your publishing if you've ticked the CD Baby one, as far as I'm
Yeah,
aware.
so I was kind of wondering. Okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because I would be in or you couldn't really have two people publishing the same piece of music.
yeah,
So so
yeah,
I mean, I think if you personally, but I am a publisher, so I'm going to stand over publishers.
sort of.
Certainly, by all means, use TuneCore to almost as a label. You know, you're able to upload your music and you're able to release it on all the digital platforms. Brilliant. You can publish your music yourself. You just have to be quite, I suppose, proactive in terms of registering it, making sure it's up with IMRO, that it's registered around the world. Um, then, if you get a good publisher, so rather than going with TuneCore, if you get a good publisher, you've got somebody who's going to try and work that track in all the relevant territories. So if you
Yeah,
sign up to a publisher and you've got a proactive publisher, you've got the likes of me, but say based in France, who has all the connections with the advertising agencies, the
yeah.
film companies, the post-production houses, who's going to push your track in a way that CD Baby or TuneCore can't do.
Yeah. But that's what I was
Yeah,
wondering is, I mean, when you do go on to like either of the websites, it does kind of say like that they will, kind of collect all the royalties for you, that they are like basically a one-stop shop. So then
yeah,
that's when I was kind of wondering, how does that work then with an independent publisher? So the best thing
yeah,
then to do is like to not use them as a publisher, but just to use them, as you said, like a label for uploading the music and distributing it, and then to use the
exactly.
publisher independently or just to do it yourself.
Exactly. As long as you think you're going to do it yourself.
Yeah,
Like if you're the sort of person, I meet those people, like I'm not adverse to TuneCore or CD Baby. If you're going to be the person who doesn't register your track for 2 years after you've written it, and you pay 10 gigs and you don't upload your gig data to your to IMRO or whoever your performing rights organization is, you
yeah,
know. So
yeah,
as long as you're going to do that job, or you're not, or you're going to, and you're not going to assign it to a publisher, then you do it, but if you're the person who's just not going to do it and you can't get a publisher to take you on, then by all means let CD Baby do it, if you see what I mean.
yes, yeah, 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 absolutely.
Yeah, as long as you're proactively going to be the person. You do need to do a bit of work on sort of, let's say your song does get in a TV show. Make sure you get the cue sheet. Make sure you let IMRO know. You have played that gig in France. Make sure you let IMRO know, I suppose. Be proactive if you're going to do your publishing, because there's a lot of work that we do as a publisher that probably people may not appreciate.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Well, I think it's kind of like just maintaining like the admin aspect of your
Yeah,
music, really. So I suppose like that is
exactly.
kind of something that is generally always in the long finger. When it comes to making music and artists and that. But as long as you're on it, I think it's much better. And actually, I'm glad we did kind of mention that, because I don't think a lot of artists would be aware that like there is a difference. And even though like it does sound amazing that like TuneCore, CD Baby are that one-stop shop, it might actually hinder you down the line. So yeah, that's a good thing to know. So tell me as well, like what production have you had the most fun working on?
Ah, normal people.
Oh, really? Oh my God,
The
amazing.
most stress, but the most fun. Ah, yeah, yeah, because it's so exciting. When you're working on something that exciting with such amazing talent like
Mm,
Nathan, an amazing editor, Stephen O'Connell, Lenny Abramson, who is a director I love, and Hetty MacDonald. And then getting to work with Maggie, who's worked on Fargo and The Handmaid's Tale. And, you're on such great material written by Sally Rooney, and you've got more budget. I mean, it's fantastic production to work on. It's wonderful.
amazing.
And it's fun too. It is quite scary. It's definitely intimidating initially, but then you get into it. And I said this before, like to some other on a panel there for the Galway Film Fla, like when you're doing a smaller production, you're doing all the same things, but with the bigger production, you have a little bit more support and you have a bit more budget around you, So the expectation is high, but it was great fun production to do. Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, I've seen the trailer. I haven't actually watched it yet, like, but just
oh god, yeah.
the soundtrack actually of it too on Spotify, and it's really nice. It really is.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I suppose, like, granted that the live music scene, as I was mentioning earlier, hasn't really probably affected you a whole lot. But have you read the Live Nation memo, and what's your opinion on it?
I haven't read the Live Nation memo.
Okay.
Because I mainly work with artists who write for film and TV. That's my main focus. I haven't. But tell me, if you want to tell me about it now, by all means do.
Yeah, well, no, just like, with the 20% cut across kind of, all sort of live, the live music industry, like with festivals and things like that. And there's just lots kind of to it, I suppose, really, like, and that obviously artists are going to kind of have to, front themselves, and if they pull out of a performance or a gig, then they're not going to kind of get paid as much. So it's basically, I mean, obviously, I suppose, like in any business, I mean, Live Nation just like kind of covering themselves. They've had to, like, cancel like hundreds of festivals all around the world. So I think it just probably might be a temporary measure, hopefully, just to kind of get them back in the game again. So yeah, I think it kind of seems
definitely really hard for artists, because I just know it's a huge income source, and it's absolutely been decimated.
It has, it really, really has. So saying that, like, I mean, personally, I think like synchronization is going to take off with artists looking for ways of making money outside the live space. So have you seen an increase in artists kind of getting in touch with you, looking for sync deals or looking for publishing deals and that?
Yeah, definitely. I have, actually. Yeah. And I had somebody ask some advice for a gig, or for a sync license on a TV show, and I said, well, the fee's a bit low, and they said, well, we need the money, so we're going to do it. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure if that was from normal people, but no, definitely. I mean, people are going to need to bring in the income whatever way they can.
Yeah. That's it. And that was kind of part of my next question as well, is what do you see as like the main way artists will be able to monetize their music in future?
Yeah, I mean, God, publishing is a big thing. I think if we can get, I mean, I certainly know, in terms of Spotify, I think it would be nice to see the percentage that the writer gets in terms of its royalty from Spotify and other digital service providers. If we can see that being a healthier balance between the writer and the artist. That is a way that I could see artists monetizing their work in a more effective way. And if we can get YouTube returning a better royalty rate, that is the way that people access music the most. People access YouTube way more than they do Spotify in terms of streaming music. And so if we can make that a fair playing field, we'll see a better return from Spotify, and we'll just see a better return from YouTube to artists. So I suppose my hope is that we can get more money from the tech giants.
Yeah, that'd be great as well.
Yeah. I mean, live is something, if we can get it up and running. It's been a very strong live market in the last sort of 5 to 10 years. And when we get that back and how strongly we get that back, I think, are two key points.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
And so what are the biggest challenges that you come up against, on a project by project basis?
Budget.
Yeah, the baby
budget. Well, productions don't understand sometimes it's not that music is expensive, but they don't. Unfortunately, budgets are small in Ireland, and music is often the one that gets squished. And so people will come to me and they don't understand that if they want to license a track by, any artist that is relatively well known, that it is going to cost them. And it's going to cost them a minimum of about 3,000 per track. And that is a hard thing to kind of, that is not often adequately budgeted for.
Yeah, so I suppose, I mean, you wouldn't probably think it might cost like that much really as well, like, so maybe it's kind of something, and if there's like, multiple tracks, It's
Well,
kind of,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And then if you kind of want to go, like, I want to be able to then go to somebody that's unsigned who I really like, an Irish artist, and I want to be able to offer them something meaningful as well.
mm,
So in terms of her fee. So that's the other thing, is if I would love to have, sometimes I would love to have a bit more meaningful fees that I could offer people.
yeah, that would be ideal. That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if people are relying more on sync, but that's a huge challenge. Hopefully now, with the success of Normal People, Element is a fantastic production company, bringing in bigger productions, that overall sync market will improve. Obviously that doesn't apply to advertising, but certainly in film and TV production, I'd
Yeah.
love to see the budgets for music be a little bit stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And what do you see happening in the future of music?
Oh, well, if I want to be really optimistic, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things around sort of, if you go down the line of blockchain and, it could go, technology hopefully will help things for the artists, but I'd love to see the tech giants returning a much better royalty to the artists, and so that artists can make money not just on gigging, but on exploitation of their works, that they're adequately remunerated for the digital use of their works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind
Yeah.
of like really surprised at this stage, like that it is kind of so heavily reliant on, live performances. But,
Yeah.
but now
Well,
obviously,
yeah, I suppose it's because I suppose because people just can't make as much money in streaming. People used to be able to make money making CDs, and that market was more buoyant. Now people can stream things more readily. They have access to music much more easily, but they're accessing that on platforms that I think don't return adequately to the creators of the work.
yeah,
And
no,
so for me, I just think that if we can focus on the creator without the song, you don't have YouTube, you have videos, but you don't have really, what mainly people are going there for. And so I would love to see that. I mean, those companies are making huge profits
mhm.
on the back of creators. So I would really like to see a more adequate remuneration. We have had a recent copyright success in the European Union, and hopefully that the passing of that law will Article 13, it's now changed its name, I can't remember to what, but hopefully that will improve the return. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think then if YouTube is more it returns more fairly, then that will make a fair playing field for Spotify and the other digital services providers. And that also then within that we see a greater recognition for the creator in the royalty.
yeah. And I'm,
Yeah.
as I say again, like nearly surprised as well that that hasn't actually kind of come, to ahead before at such a rate.
Yeah,
I mean, you think that like with the the death of like say the tape or the vinyl or
I know.
things, other things would kind of like come in replacement. They kind of have, well, they kind of have, but like not in the same sort of monetary value. I think
Exactly.
that would be something to kind of substitute that, but maybe
Exactly.
like 20 years later, there still isn't, except for live gigs. Like, so it's kind of surprising it's been this gap for this long.
I
Really,
know.
so
I
hopefully
know.
it will change soon.
And then in some ways, there's, as if you're not an emerging artist, a new artist, you can get your music out there so much more quickly. I mean, you can use TuneCore. You don't have to have you don't have to record expensively and get a label then to pay for that recording and then promote you. You can do it all, but that there's a much greater onus on the artist to do that. But then to how do you rise above? How do you market yourself, and how do you rise above everybody else on Spotify?
Yeah,
And I think we're going to see more of a role for, like, the label will almost become more like more of a marketing company, because really that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about marketing, because the cost of making something is not always expensive.
yeah, because I try and work with artists to try and help them establish themselves as a business, to kind of help them with sort of that aspect of things. But what I kind of say first and foremost is that like they're a marketer and they're in sales technically, whether and then their music is their product and their performance is their service.
Yeah.
So if they can kind of, look at things that way and then work it that way with consistency and, lots of marketing as well, that is how they can kind of stand out really. So I think
Exactly.
that's really everything now these days is marketing. So
Absolutely. No, that's it. That's a great service to offer.
yeah.
Yeah, it's invaluable. And I suppose gigging is part of that marketing.
It is true. Yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, I
Yeah.
suppose that would be sort of like the service you would say, and then like the
Yeah.
music is the product. Because everything is
Mm,
either a service or a product. And you're selling it,
yeah.
marketing it. Like so, that's kind of like the very basics of it. Once you kind of get that and package that, okay, now you know what you need to do.
Yeah.
So
And I
yeah.
mean, and sync has been, I mean, particularly for normal people, I've really seen the value of sync in terms of marketing. Like I mean, I know a lot of artists have, and I've seen a huge bump in their Spotify streaming.
Yeah,
So
definitely. No, sync could be is a huge is definitely part of that marketing package as well, that marketing strategy. Because
yeah.
obviously, it's getting it out there to a much broader audience that wouldn't have necessarily come across it initially. So yeah. So I suppose like what advice would you have to artists now moving forward, like post COVID and going into the future?
Yeah, I would say, obviously we're assuming you're making great music. I would say get yourself out there, if you're gigging, if you're on Spotify playlists, if you're active on social media, and if you are working with people, I think if you're going to bring people into your business music world, that you trust them and that you're clear about what they can bring to what you're doing. And I would think if you can pick really good people to work with as well, I would also advise that. And I think you to be focused, unfortunately you have to be, as you say, a marketing person, you have to be a bit of a publisher if you're going to do it all yourself. But I do think there is value in bringing people in to help you with that. You just got to get the right people in.
I think that's really important. Yeah, is to kind of have like say a good team around you. Because you
Definitely.
can't do everything yourself. I mean, if you're
You
creating,
can't.
you're doing the music and then doing the admin and then doing the promotion, the marketing, it
Yeah.
is really difficult. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a really good point actually to have like a really good team around you. And as I say as well, like to people, you can actually hire VAs for very affordable prices just to kind of do the admin side of things. So
Yeah.
it's not really too expensive to do that.
Exactly. And you don't have to give away your rights anymore. Like, you can have somebody working your catalog, publisher, and you're not saying, here's my copyrights forever. And I've seen, I suppose experience has shown me that there are some people who don't want to bring anybody in and don't want to give anything away. And I don't always see that being productive in the end.
No, to be fair, it's kind of not, because they're just kind of holding themselves back, really. At the
Yeah,
end of the
yeah.
day.
I mean,
So
if there's
yeah,
a part of it you find you're really good at and you're prepared to do, go for it. You have to think, okay, do I want to take away? Am I happy to do that? Yeah, I am. And I can still write and I can still gig. That's great. But if you can't, or you think maybe not, find somebody you don't send you're not tied in forever, and you're comfortable with. You've seen their track record, you've looked at their syncs, and look at their sync page, ask them how many syncs they've got for their artist in the last 6 months, and then stay in contact with them. I would say go hi, not pushy, but like, if you've got a sync, let them know. So there's lots of ways that you can bring people in that don't tie you in, that should add value to your business.
yes, absolutely amazing advice. Juliet, thank you so much for joining me today and for answering all my questions. And like, there's some amazing advice there actually. So that has been really, really good. Listen, thank you so much again for your time and everything. Really appreciate it. And I will send you on an email afterwards with the podcast, and you can have a listen back. So listen, thanks so much, and I'll hopefully talk to you again in the future.
Thanks a million, Antonia. Bye.
Okay, then, bye.
Bye.